Turbo Drift. This has to be one of the most portable games that I own, not just because of the size, which is small as you can see, but also because of the material and the shape of the box. Well, that's not the case. The game is entirely contained in this little plastic pouch. Because it is plastic, it is pretty resistant, it is thin, it fits in the inside pocket of my jacket, and in fact I carry it with me, and sometimes I play with my daughter Amelia, who is 7, when we're waiting for food at restaurants. It is true, it requires a little bit of space to play, but we just move plates and silverware around and we make that space. The game is a car race. Each player will get a car, such as this one, and you place your cars on one side of the battlefield, and then on the other side you will place a card representing the finishing line. You probably want it to be further than that, but for the purpose of this simplification, that is good enough. A player takes this card, which represents the first player's token, and then we have this card that will be given to the active player whenever the active player goes. Then we have these cards that represent obstacles. If you touch them with your car or with one of the cars that you used to move, as I will show you, you crash, so you have to go back. But if you're able to touch one of these symbols here without touching the obstacle, you get a bonus. And you scatter those somewhere between the starting line and the finishing line. Again, this is just an example, probably not a very good one, or at least it makes for a very tough race, because you need to dodge those obstacles. Now, and then we have these 6 cards here, which are double-sided, and they're used to maneuver your cars. You will place them next to the play area in a configuration of 3 by 2. You know what? Let's put them this way. A 3 by 2. When it is your turn, you choose 1, 2, or 3 of these cards. If you choose 1, you're gonna go not as far, but then you also get to take the first player's token, so you will get a card, so you'll be the first player next round. If you take 2, they have to be in the same column, so you don't get to choose exactly, you get to choose the column. So maybe there's a configuration which is good and then you wanna jump on it. Or you can take 3, but in which case they have to be in the same row. Again, you don't get to choose all that much. You have to be in the same row, and before you play them, you shuffle them. So that's gonna be random there. After you play the cards and use them for movement, you will put them back in the grid in any order you want, but you have to flip them to the other side so that the available maneuvers will change from round to round, or from turn to turn. When you took your cards, or cards, what you do with it? Well, first you take this card here, and you place it right behind your car. The purpose is to mark where your car was. Then you move your car, and you take the maneuver card or cards that you acquire. Suppose that I only took 1 card, then I place it there, and then I put my card there, and then I remove the other 2. Probably, if you play the Wings of War, you will be familiar with this idea, which is handled here differently from what we have in that game, but the general idea is very similar. If you have multiple cards, suppose that I picked up these 2, then I can play them in any order I want. The general idea remains the same. I use this card here to mark the position of my car, and then I add the other 2. And voila, and that's how you move from there to there, and so on and so forth. Again, if during your movement you touch one of those turbo symbols, then you get to move extra. You use this card as extra movement. If you touch the obstacle with your car or with a movement card, then you simply go back until you are in a legal position, that is, until you don't crash. And the same applies if you hit the car of another opponent. You can also reverse if you find yourself in a sticky situation, then in which case you simply apply the maneuver card to the back of your car. And this is how it works. Continue like practice taking cards, maneuver cards, and playing them to form your maneuver track until a player manages to cross the finishing line, and the player that does that first is the winner of the game. This is how Turbo Drift works. Extremely simple, as you can see, but for a game this simple, rather impressive, because it really gives you the feel of a game like Winds of War or a much more complex, much more sophisticated race game in such a portable format, with a system of rules that you can play with a 7-year-old, which I can do. I could probably play it even with my 5-year-old. She would crash against the obstacles constantly, but she can figure out the general functioning of the rules and mechanics. In fact, I may consider playing it with her either with very few obstacles or with no obstacles at all. That could already be interesting. In fact, with the obstacles, again, the rules are super simple. Sometimes figuring out the maneuvers exactly can be challenging with my 7-year-old. She's not always the best at figuring out where the car is going to go, or which of the options available in the grid will get her where she wants her car to go. But she likes the challenge. Definitely, it is pretty fun. The challenge of figuring out which maneuver will be more profitable, calculating where you're gonna end, and the push or luck element. I mean, if you had perfect sight and you know exactly by looking at 2 cards where you're gonna go, well, then may reduce the challenge. Lucky enough, our brain and our eye are not perfect, so there is a little bit of excitement there. There is a clearer and stronger push or luck factor, of course, when you decide to take 3 cards in a row and you shuffle them before you actually apply them one after the other to see where you're gonna go. And then the definite cases where I really wonder where I'm going. But again, there's an interesting element there because you're evaluating the cards. If the cards that are available are sort of kind of straight-ish, and well, maybe it's not too terrible. If this is the row of cards, I don't know exactly when I'm gonna take that tight turn, but more or less, maybe, I get a sense of where I may end up. It may be worth the risk. And very often it is worth the risk. And also kind of thematic because you're sliding around, you get a sense you're losing control of the vehicle. So it's about assessing when it is worth taking the risk. Now, if these were the available maneuvers, I think it would be fairly safe, again in most cases, to take the chance. However, thanks to the obstacles, there's also that added element. Sometimes it is better to go safe, take only 2 cards, but hit one of the turbo boost symbols and then get a straight maneuver right away. So you get pretty much to move by 3 cards, one of them being particularly good because it's straight and goes all across the card. Also knowing where you go. So if you take 1 or 2 cards and you manage to hit one of those. So it was a surprise. I admit I saw this in a store. I picked it up just because of the novelty of the package, not knowing much about how it was. I was like, car race, okay, I like games about cars and car races in general. How bad can it be? Turned out not just to be not bad, but to be actually pretty good, pretty fun. This is a game that up to now I played with my daughter, with my 7-year-old, but I could totally see myself playing it with adults only, using it as a filler during a game night, as an intro game, as a warm-up game, because it is fun, it is exciting, it has those moments of cheer, like, yes, I managed to pull off that incredible maneuver, those like, oh man, in which things look perfect, but you crash against things. It's just an interesting situation, and as the situation evolves constantly, it is just fun to see, what happens next, which is typical of a lot of race games. I like the idea of a race game that has a quote-unquote miniature feel to it, meaning that it takes place not on a gridded board or play area, but in open continuous space, using a mechanic that I like very much from Wings of War and applying it to a different theme with a different feel. But still, very fun, very enjoyable game. Turbo Drift, a pleasant surprise for me. They turned out to be not just a fun-looking game to add to my collection, but also one that actually is a lot of fun to play. Highly recommended, very portable, also pretty affordable. Turbo Drift, a winner in my book.